Welcome to Speakeasy Spirits. Normally, I'm pretty weird, but today I look kind of pretty, because today we're looking at some pretty weird cocktails. The idea for today's video came from a comment on one of my past videos. One of our viewers and a close friend of mine asked, could I make some pretty cocktails? With New Year's Eve fast approaching, I thought this was a good time to take a look at some pretty cocktails, but with a twist. I'm going to make them all with some very weird ingredients. So today I want to make 3 cocktails that would be great for your New Year's Eve toasts. These are inspired by the Negroni, the French 75, and the Ramos Gin Fizz. This cocktail is my original take on a Negroni, inspired by the Negroni Sbagliato. The Negroni Sbagliato is a classic cocktail, but it really began trending last year when one of the stars of HBO's House of the Dragon mentioned that her favorite cocktail is the Negroni Sbagliato with Prosecco in it, which is kind of redundant because a Negroni Sbagliato is made of Prosecco. A clip of her saying that went viral on TikTok, and it was a very popular cocktail for a short period. Now, I'm not a big fan of Negronis. For me, Campari is a little too bitter, so I tried to walk back the bitterness a bit by switching up some of the ingredients. So we're going to need Aperol. This is another bitter red Italian liqueur. It's not nearly as bitter as Campari. It's considered one of the sweetest of the bitter red liqueurs. We're also going to need vermouth and some Prosecco or sparkling wine. All of these bottles are already chilled. I keep them in the refrigerator. With vermouth, once you open it, you are going to want to refrigerate it. An open bottle of vermouth will typically last you about 6 months before the flavors start to go off, which is why I buy these smaller bottles, so it doesn't go to waste. We're going to start with a mixing glass filled with ice. We're going to add 1 ounce of Aperol. And 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. Now, we're not looking for a lot of dilution here. We just want to chill it a bit more. Maybe add just a little bit of water, so just give it a quick stir. Now we're going to strain that into a champagne flute. And we're going to top that with our Prosecco. And just fill that up to the top. Now we are going to leave a little space here because this is where our weird ingredient comes in. I picked up these hibiscus flowers in syrup some time ago. I was wondering where I could use them. This seems like a perfect spot. So we're going to want to take 1 hibiscus flower. And just drop that into the bottom of the glass as our garnish. Top off with a little more Prosecco. Now, the hibiscus flower is going to give some place for the bubbles to form in this glass. So you're going to see the bubbles rising here. They're also sticking to the hibiscus flower. So if you can see that close up, it's a very pretty cocktail. Now, if you're not a fan of the bitterness of a Negroni, this is a version that's going to be much, much sweeter. Already the Aperol has a lot of sweetness to it. The sweetness of the vermouth and then the sweetness of the Prosecco all combine to make this a very nice champagne-style cocktail for New Year's Eve. It's a little floral and herbal from the Aperol and the vermouth. The Prosecco adds a nice lightness to this. It's not very bitter. It doesn't have an alcohol burn to it. So this would be a great alternative for cocktail lovers who don't want to just drink champagne on New Year's. If you've got an idea for a video or you want to see me make something specific, go ahead and leave a note in the comments. Now, what my friend said specifically was, can you make some pretty cocktails, maybe something with Empress Gin. Empress Gin is a gin that's been infused with Butterfly Pea Blossoms, a small blue flower that's typically dried and turned into a tea. When you add that to the gin, it turns it a dark purple color. Now, Empress isn't the only company making a Butterfly Pea Blossom gin, but they are the most common. You'll probably be able to easily find it in your local liquor store. Companies like McQueen and the Violet Fog also make a Butterfly Pea Blossom gin. But maybe you only want 1 bottle of gin in your cabinet, and you don't want it to turn everything you make blue. I personally wouldn't want a blue last word. That should be a light green from the chartreuse. So what I've done is I've taken a standard clear gin and I have added Butterfly Pea Blossom powder. This also comes in a liquid form where you can add individual drops straight into a cocktail. This gives you a lot more flexibility because now you can still have your Butterfly Pea Blossom gin and a regular clear gin all in one bottle. So what I've done here is I've taken some of this powder, I've added it to a bottle of gin and turned it this vibrant purple color. So this is what we're going to be using for my take on a French 75. Our weird ingredient is the Butterfly Pea Blossom gin. To that we're going to need some simple syrup. I'm going to be using this rosemary sage simple, some lemon juice, and some Prosecco or sparkling wine. So let's start with our lemon. First we're going to need a garnish. So I'm going to use a channel knife to cut one long strip of lemon. You just want to go around slowly, not digging too deep into the lemon. And this is going into our champagne glass. Go ahead and twist that into a spiral and drop it in. Now to a shaker, we're going to add half an ounce of the rosemary sage simple and 2 ounces of our Butterfly Pea Blossom gin. Now we're also going to need 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, but we are not going to add this to our shaker. We are going to set it aside in another glass. Now you want to shake your syrup and your gin together. Let's strain that into our champagne glass. And you can see that beautiful purple color. Now we're going to top that with our Prosecco or champagne. Give it a moment for the bubbles to settle. Now you're going to want to leave some room at the top for the lemon juice. And so when you serve this to your guests, you're going to ask them to add the lemon juice at the very end. This is also one of the characteristics of the Butterfly Pea Blossom and what makes it so weird. When you add lemon juice to it, it lightens it and turns it from purple into a pink color. And there you have the Speakeasy 75. Butterfly Pea Blossom itself doesn't carry a lot of flavor. It's mostly in here for the color and its color changing ability. You've got the herbal notes of the rosemary sage simple with the sweetness of the Prosecco and the floral characteristics of the gin. This makes a very easy drinking cocktail. It's bright and fresh, not as low in alcohol as a Negroni Sbagliato. But again, if you're looking for something bubbly to toast the new year, this is a great option. This last cocktail uses probably our weirdest looking ingredient, a persimmon. This weird orange tomato looking thing is actually a fruit, but I've never tasted persimmon before. I saw these in the store and wanted to see what I could do with one. So let's cut one open and see what we can make. All right, so it looks like it's mostly seedless. Flavor-wise, this is definitely much softer than a pear or an apple. It has a bit of a honey kind of sweetness to it. It's very sweet. I'm thinking we can make a syrup out of this. Now in our pan, we've added 1 persimmon that I've taken the skin off of, and I've added just a couple ounces of water. We're mostly looking for the fruit juice there. The water is just to keep the bottom of the pan from scorching. Now this is a pretty soft fruit. You could easily mash it up with a spoon, but I'm going to use an immersion blender to turn it into a puree. This is going to be a 2-to-1 simple syrup. So what I want is about half a cup of the puree. Which is right there. So close enough. So to half a cup of puree, we are going to add 1 cup of sugar. And we're going to stir that until the sugar is completely dissolved. Because the persimmon is a little thick, we may still add a little water to thin out the syrup. So keep stirring this until the sugar is completely dissolved. Now, if you were making just a regular simple syrup without the fruit, the idea is the same. You would just add 1 cup of water to 2 cups of sugar, heat it up on low heat until the sugar is dissolved, and then you can bottle it. Typically, a simple syrup is good for a couple of months. The sugar seems mostly dissolved. I'm going to turn off the heat, and we're going to let this cool a little. Once it's cooled, we're going to bottle it. Now I'm going to use a fine mesh strainer to get any of the larger chunks out of there, and a funnel to get it into the bottle. So now that it's cooled, let's strain this through our fine mesh strainer. Now this is pretty thick, so it may take a little while to strain the whole thing. And now what we're left with is a 2-to-1 persimmon simple syrup. So now that we have our weird ingredient for our cocktail, I want to do a take on a Ramos Gin Fizz. This is a classic cocktail you're not going to see on the menu at a lot of restaurants or bars because there's a lot of effort that goes into shaking this cocktail. We're going to start with 1 egg white. Now, I like to freeze my egg whites. Frozen, they'll last up to a year. This way I can buy a bottle of liquid egg white, measure it out into an ice cube tray, and freeze them. So I've always got some egg white ready for cocktails. Now we'll take our frozen egg white and just break it up a bit. And then that's going to incorporate as we add the other ingredients. So to the shaker, we're going to add 2 ounces of gin. Now you can use your favorite gin here. I'm using McQueen and the Violet Fog. This is a contemporary style gin that's just a little sweeter than a lot of dry gins. Now 3/4 of an ounce of our persimmon syrup. Now if you just want to make a regular Ramos Gin Fizz, you would just use regular simple syrup here. 1/2 ounce of heavy cream. And using heavy cream is key here. I really wouldn't suggest trying 1/2 and 1/2 or whole milk. Now we need 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. And 1/2 ounce of lime juice. And 3 dashes of orange bitters. Now we're going to give this a dry shake, and this is where a lot of the work comes in. For this cocktail, you're going to want to shake the hell out of it. Keep shaking until you think it's done, and then shake it some more, and when you're ready to stop, shake it some more. What we're trying for here is to build up a lot of foam. We want a really tall head on this. Now because we're not using any ice, you're going to need to hold these two together. As you create the foam, it's expanding, which is going to want to push these tins apart. So keep a good grip on these. Whew. Now we got a lot of foam in there. We're going to add our ice to chill. Go ahead and seal up your tin, and let's shake it some more. All right, now it's cold. A tall, thin glass works best for this cocktail. So we're going to go ahead and strain in, but we don't want to fill it to the top yet. Now you're going to want to let this sit maybe up to a minute. That'll let the foam all rise to the top and build a nice head. Now once the foam has settled a bit, we're going to take some club soda and a straw. Now you want to drop your straw right down the middle and pour your club soda so it runs down the straw. And we'll top that off until it gets to the top. Now if you've done your head right, you can actually keep going and have the head rise above the drink. And there is our Speakeasy Gin Fizz. When it's done right, you should be able to get the head above the rim of the glass, and it should be able to hold up the straw so it doesn't touch the sides. I've had a Ramos Gin Fizz a few times, but the addition of the persimmon really makes this unique. It's got a sweet honey quality to it that's balanced well by the acid of the lemon and lime. The gin gives it a nice herbal note. This is not a creamy cocktail by any means. This is not a milkshake. But what the cream does is contribute a little bit to the texture and mostly to the formation of the head, so you get that nice thick foam. I think this meets all the criteria. It's pretty, it's weird, and it's delicious. But it's a lot of work, so save it for a special occasion like New Year's Eve. And there you have 3 pretty weird cocktails. My take on a less bitter sparkling Negroni, a French 75 using Butterfly Pea Blossom infused gin, and the Speakeasy Fizz, my take on a Ramos Gin Fizz using a Persimmon Syrup. Any of these would be great for toasting on New Year's Eve, or whenever you want to impress your friends with some pretty cocktails. I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.